fate of TikTok is still up in the air, but time is ticking. Representatives from ByteDance will make their case to the Supreme Court Friday to try to stop this looming ban.
Some, however, like the New York Post's editorial board, are warning that letting TikTok slide could have national security implications. In a piece titled "New China Spy Revelations Show Why Trump is Wrong to Resist TikTok Ban," the board argues the following. The revelation this weekend that China was able to hack US wireless telecom networks undetected for months proves yet again that Donald Trump is dead wrong to try hindering the 2024 law. That telecom hack news shows what China will do, even knowing it'll eventually be found out. It believes any US response will be a joke.
Those telecom news hackers targeted calls and phone lines to Trump, Vice President Kamala Harris, Vice President-elect J.D. Vance, and others in their circle, according to the Wall Street Journal.
If the Supreme Court decides to move forward with the ban, ByteDance will have until January 19th to sell TikTok, or the app's life in America will end. Entrepreneur Kevin O'Leary, however, has expressed some interest in cutting a deal to save the app.
Independent journalist Glenn Greenwald took to X recently and wrote, "Trump's argument isn't that China has First Amendment rights. Nobody believes that. His argument is that a TikTok ban infringes on the free speech, free association, and free access to information rights of the 170 million Americans who voluntarily choose to use the platform." Representing the opposite perspective, Nikki Haley jumped in, writing, "If the TikTok ban is reversed with the Chinese Communist Party still in control of it, it will be the first of many wins for China." So this is a real debate, not just in American society at large, but within the Republican coalition. There are many ardent Trump supporters, conservative MAGA people who absolutely want the app banned, and there are others who are against it. I am in the more skeptical of the ban category alongside Glenn Greenwald, Rand Paul, Elon Musk,
Alexandria
Ocasio-Cortez, Tucker Carlson. It's a very interesting and eclectic gathering of people who think that basically this is even if you think it's a good idea, even if you think it's best for America if TikTok didn't exist, it's still a First Amendment issue. And exactly like Glenn put it, it's not that the Chinese party has First Amendment right, or that China has First Amendment rights. It's that the First Amendment is a restriction on the government's ability to stop you and I, the American people, from hearing things that they want to hear, or from reading things, from saying things, from consuming pieces of creative expression. And that this even if it's Chinese propaganda, it still counts. Now, the national security implications of TikTok, I think, are worth taking seriously. I do think the Chinese Communist Party is an adversary of the United States, is an adversary of global freedom, an adversary of its own people. I want to be cognizant of that, of ways their government can spy on us or obtain information about us. But then when you get into the specific details of what they're doing here, I'm not saying it's not nefarious, but like all governments are spying on people in various ways, obtaining data on people. Our government is doing that. Our government is also pressuring the American social media companies, or had, as we've discussed ad nauseum, to censor content. So if the Chinese government is doing that, it's bad, but it's no different than what we did. And so I find myself just not persuaded that the national security concerns are so overwhelmingly well established that can somehow be an exception to the First Amendment. There are exceptions and can be exceptions to the First Amendment. I'm a 99% absolutist person, but there can be exceptions. You haven't satisfied me that we've gotten there.
Yeah, I do think that there are legitimate questions as to whether the United States public should be perhaps, there should be a broader effort to educate the public about Chinese ownership and exactly what that means. Corporations in China do not have the degree of freedom from government control that American corporations have. They are very formally required to furnish information anytime the Chinese government wants it. There are legitimate concerns about the Chinese government using TikTok to stoke divisions by introducing certain material and all of that. All of that being said, I have TikTok, so it clearly hasn't got to the level where I'm terrified about the Chinese Communist Party using it against me. And I, like you and like AOC, this is a very motley crew here, but I think her view, which I largely share, is there is this focus on TikTok and the Chinese ownership, which acts to distract from the way tech corporations generally can harvest data, can have very questionable policies where our privacy is concerned, irrespective of whether they are headquartered in China or in Georgia or Texas or California.
And that kind of information that they're gathering on you, people hate when I say this, but it's just, we're not putting that genie back in the bottle. The information they're gathering has to do with you're feeding it to them. You are clicking on things, you are educating the app, the algorithm, about your preferences, about what pieces of content you like to engage in, how much time you spend looking at this versus that. They are compiling dossiers of information on you. You are assisting them in that process. It's not just like your private, your passwords or your things like that. It's a composite of you and your interests that you are providing them that is just by its very nature, by the function, how it works. If you're not comfortable with that, log off, delete it from your phone. To participate in the future, they're going to know things about you in that respect.
Well, first of all, how viable is it really for most people in this country to log off at this point in our technological evolution? If you cut yourself off from the digital world, you are cutting yourself off from a lot of American life in 2024.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
There are real reasons to suggest that there should, I think, be more safeguards in place as to how much information just flows to corporations without there being any check on it or any formal warning about it. I know in the real world, lots of people, including me, scroll through those warnings and go, yeah, I have to press accept here to get into the app. But I don't necessarily think that we should just take the view that, oh, well, the genie's out of the bottle so corporations can harvest whatever they like. I do think that it is worth trying to put some kind of restrictions on that, at least in the sense of making users fully aware of the way their behavior can be tracked and that behavior can be monetized by people other than themselves.
That's fine. Remember, all these things are free. You're not paying for the service. The way the app makes money on it is advertisements that are tailored to you based on your preferences. And it is not always and necessarily pernicious for the app to recommend more correctly tailored things for you. In fact, this is often a benefit. Like if you just turn on the TV, well, now even the TV kind of knows what your preferences are because it's attached to your same internet. I don't know exactly why, but it is the case that if you Google some product, you will then often see it advertised on TV. It didn't used to be that way. You'd just see tons of commercials for it. It could be, they try to, if it's an hour of, Nickelodeon where 14-year-olds are watching, it's a lot of toy commercials and cereal commercials, so it was still sophisticated, but nowhere near as sophisticated as it is now. And if you have to watch ads, if you have to see things you might buy, I would argue it is better to see things you are more interested in than things you have no interest in. And so it's not always necessarily pernicious.
It's not necessarily pernicious, although I would say it can be quite irritating. I'm constantly surprised by how bad algorithmic advertising is. For example, anytime I buy stuff online that is, sometimes the nature of the product is that it's something you only buy once every several years. Like I bought a couch online. I was bedeviled in my internet browsing for about 3 months after by ads for couches. There is no point in the life cycle of my couch buying when I am less likely to buy a couch than a month after I've bought one. But there we go.
I agree with that, but I get advertisements for shows I might like that I might have missed on. I watch a lot of TV, Netflix, HBO, etc. I might not have heard about this show, and I see a trailer for it, and I'm like, oh, I might watch that. For clothes from brands I like, brands that are like the brands I like. Oh, this is interesting. Yes, I've had the experience. We've all had the experience of just couch. But I think in general, it can be good.
More skeptical, but anyway, there we go.
More Rising right after this.